Mercedes is making quiet sounds. After 2 years with only one win, 1 third place and 1 second place in the overall standings, the former world champions chose not to make any major announcements or build hopes that might not be realized. After a brief YouTube presentation, the works team holed up in wet Silverstone to complete the first few miles. Brackley engineers have focused their efforts on improving the handling of the single-seater's rear axle, which has been described as naughty. The first shakedown took place at Silverstone, the first real test for the W15. And this shakedown proved to be above expectations, leaving Mercedes excited for the first test days this week. However, the German team has chosen an unusual layout for the car during the shakedown to avoid prying eyes before the pre-season testing in Bahrain, when they will undoubtedly begin playing with their cards revealed. Toto Wolff confessed that the mistakes committed in 2022 and partially repeated in 2023 pushed the team to close a substantial gap with the competition. Nevertheless, they made major improvements over the winter, which resulted in a more than successful shakedown, which could only lead to more during pre-season testing this week. But the engineers had to first comprehend their unpredictable W14 racing car before attempting to remove the fluff. The driver's wishes became their command. If we can extend the car's working window, that will give us confidence. Then it will also be easier to find lap times, said Russell in 2023. Thus, at Mercedes, there was a back and forth. James Allison, the head of engineering at Mercedes, says, "The main approach was to rectify the weaknesses of last year's car. We had a good idea of what the Achilles heel was. From then on, it was about striking a balance between working on the weaknesses and keeping the things that worked well." When it came to correcting flaws, the design departments at Brackley encountered numerous challenges. The cross-section of their chassis was square, the gearbox was too large at the bottom, and the control units and lateral crash components were positioned incorrectly. The rear axle employed disc springs, which were less accurate to modify than the torsion bar springs used today. To achieve the flexibility necessary for stable and effective aerodynamics, they required a new chassis, gearbox, and rear axle. Hamilton should be satisfied about the new chassis, as the cockpit of the new W15 has been pushed back in respect to the front axle, improving his driving experience. The regulations allow for 10 centimeters of mobility while adjusting the cockpit. The new Mercedes W15 also features a number of unique design elements. The front wing has an entirely new geometry. No other has such a massive initial flap. A large space between the first and second flaps, and the third flap is chopped off in the middle so that it does not dock onto the nose. This new front wing looks to benefit from an intelligent design of the fourth piece, flap. Its goal is to approximate the Y250 Vortex. This was one of the primary issues addressed by the most recent regulations. Previously, engineers employed it on older wing standards to produce stress towards the floor entry. Furthermore, it helped to tidy up hazardous airflow. Up to 2021, the vortices formed by the rotating vanes and skirts regulated the flow directed towards the front edge of the floor. The goal was clear: to make this procedure easier. As previously said, aerodynamically speaking, creating this vortex stronger is typically beneficial. How much does this improve performance? Only a moderate increase, as taking a too aggressive approach might lead to more issues. The Brackley technicians appear to have worked hard on this concept, partially replicating that kind of impact. However, it will be fascinating to see how the competitors react. Mercedes' aerodynamic fairing and crash structure were totally redesigned after a thorough assessment of the car's front platform, including the nose shortening. The nose is now resting on the penultimate piece, leaving the blowing between the main plane and the second flap free. But they have done more to the car. The cooling inlets are in the form of an ear. They remove the lower stem, implying that the top side crash structure has relocated to the upper border of the side pods. Some of the wishbones are convexly curved, the antithesis of the Red Bull and the Aston Martin. The side pods duck in a line towards the ground, seeming thinner than those of the competitors. The top channel, which is so noticeable on Aston Martin or Alpine, is gone. The severe undercut at the front of the side panels forms a tunnel on the underside, leaving an extraordinarily large amount of room on the floor panel up to the paneling. Allison claims that the true combat takes place in the unseen space under the car. Almost everything has changed there, as seen by the finely sculpted top of the front Venturi ducts and the 6 various slots along the floor edge. Because the cars were so wingless on the straights last year, Mercedes decreased drag in several areas and introduced a new rear wing family to the lineup. The head of engineering characterizes the days preceding up to the first test as follows: "It's like waiting for Christmas. You want the time to finally come, even if opening presents doesn't always bring everything you want." Toto Wolff isn't having any of it. "We hate losing, and that's what drives us." The team principal hopes that the new and improved W15 will consistently be in the upper half of the rankings, attempting to stay as close to Red Bull as possible from the start of the 2024 campaign, and then, during the championship, pursue further evolutionary paths and attempt to close the gap to the Milton Keynes stable. But Mercedes is still dealing with its slide to the second row after 8 magnificent years. This is represented in almost every statement. "When it hurts, you don't forget it," as team manager Toto Wolff characterizes his and his team's mental condition. He talks earnestly of Mount Everest, which must be scaled in order to bridge the gap with class leader Red Bull. "We have to be realistic about our chances of beating a team that was way ahead of everyone else and that has done everything right in the past 2 years, which unfortunately we haven't managed to do." Hence the cautious wish. "I hope that we will be at the front of the chasing pack at the start of the season and get one step closer to Red Bull." This is the minimal ambition. Last season, both drivers complained about the car's poor handling, particularly its unpredictability on numerous courses. Although Lewis has begun his final season with Mercedes before leaving to Ferrari, the Englishman hopes to cap off the longest and most successful driver-team alliance in history in style. This aim does not distract him from the present since, as he himself admits, it is a wonderful honour to continue working with the team that propelled him to the top of all statistics. "The insights of the last 2 years have helped us to find our compass again. If you don't feel comfortable in the car, you can't deliver your optimum performance. A more stable and predictable car will allow us to realise our full potential," Hamilton said. The 7-time world champion stated that watching the W15 in its whole for the first time left him speechless, as it was unquestionably one of the season's greatest moments. Hamilton has not forgotten his dissatisfaction over the past 2 years, during which he failed to accomplish any victory. Despite a terrible previous 2 seasons and a predetermined near future, Hamilton appears more driven than ever. In contrast, George Russell is destined to pick up his compatriot's mantle. Expectations for the new car are comparable to those of its garage partner. Although progress was achieved with the B version of the W14 last year, the operating window was too small, and once outside, the car became undrivable. George Russell goes on to say, "We have already made progress on some of the W14's unpleasant characteristics in recent years, but we still had too narrow an operating window. As soon as we moved outside this window, the car was difficult to drive." The young English talent's hope is clear: alter direction with the W15. To do this, it is intended that the most recent aeromechanical engineering work would allow the previously mentioned operating range to be enlarged, resulting in a pleasant feeling in addition to the handling required to fully maximize the car's capabilities on every circuit. If this goal is met, Russell is certain that they will be able to be more aggressive with the car without concern of losing downforce. Furthermore, there is an intriguing fact that was discovered during testing the car last week. It was discovered that once put on the 7-post rig, dynamic bench, there was considerable worry about the rear suspension. The car dynamics crew spent many sleepless nights working on the necessary kinematic changes during the winter. Fortunately, during the first seasonal shakedown, Mercedes discovered the predicted association, which had raised a minor worry in previous days. The W15's rear axle performed nicely, achieving the intended results. Naturally, more inspections are required in Bahrain to confirm the optimistic indicators gained in the humid conditions of Silverstone. So Mercedes seem ready to fight Red Bull this year. They have made major changes to the car to help them achieve this, but so have Red Bull. So will this completely new approach be enough for Mercedes? We'll see the first signs in a couple of days during pre-season testing.